Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be our last day for our 2025 and 2026 curriculum picks videos. So today we're going to be covering our history and geography for social sciences, and then we're also going to go over two of our kind of unit studies that we're planning to do sometime during the school year. So here we go. The first thing we're going to go over is our plans for history. So for history, we are planning to do Story of the World, Early Modern Times. So last year we did Medieval Times. We used both Story of the World and Curiosity Chronicles last year, and the plan is to do that again this year. So the main curriculum spine will be Story of the World, using their activity book, and then any kind of areas that maybe weren't covered on Story of the World, we are going to be using the audiobook for Curiosity Chronicles. So for Story of the World, we have the reader. We do not use the audiobook for this, we just do read aloud from the book. And then we are also planning to do the activity book. So we really like these activities. I don't have any of the activities for both the instructor manual or the student manual for Curiosity Chronicles. We just have the PDF file and the audio book files. So the actual activities, we will be using the activity book for the Story of the World. And so the chapters that are covered in book 3 for Early Modern Times, I'll show you here, and then in here. And then, so for Story of the World activity books, it really covers a wide range of options for you to do. There's review questions, there's narration exercises. They have additional reading of history and corresponding literature suggestions. The main thing we use this for are the questions and then the map work. And then there's an option, give my daughter for coloring page if she wants to or not. And then they also have activities that you can do. So they have different projects of different types. So there's an art project, a cooking project, a craft project, and a shadow theater, just for this one chapter. And it's very similar layout for all of the chapters. And so in the back, you can see those are the coloring pages and then the corresponding map pages for that particular topic. So that's what we usually use that for. And then here is the Curiosity Chronicles, Early Modern Times, and then what those chapters cover. And then along with both of those, towards the later end of the year, we won't be using this for every single chapter, but we'll pick and choose some of them for, because this is would be a lot of writing with the essentials in writing that we're doing and mentioned in the language arts section. So for here, we'll be doing the World History Early Modern Times Lithouse Learning on level 2. If you saw my language arts video, I mentioned that we're going to be doing level 1 just for one more book at the beginning of the year. And then we'll be moving on to level 2, which focuses on outlining and paragraphs. So in here, just a couple of the examples of the chapters that are covered. And this particular curriculum is not for a specific corresponding history curriculum. It has, when you buy the curriculum, it gives you a spreadsheet so you can see what corresponding chapters would pertain to each of these activities, depending on which curriculum you use. So Story of the World and Curiosity Chronicles are both listed in there. So those are those chapters. In addition to the standard history curriculum, we like to bring in readers throughout the year. So currently unsure of what we'll be doing with specific chapters in the curriculum, but I will be using a few of the Who Was, Where Is series. And so for when we get to looking at London, we will be doing Where is the Tower of London? There's a lot of history that occurred there, so we will be covering that. Okay, and next we will be moving on to geography plans. So the main focus this year will be working on starting to map continents. So last year we did the entire world, mapping out those continents and the oceans. And so this year we're going to be starting with Europe for our first continent, and the plan is to map all of the countries and then start mapping the major waterways. And then once we get to become very, very proficient in mapping Europe, we'll move on to other continents. So that's our main focus. And then in addition to that, just to try to cover some additional knowledge in geography, we will be using Evan Moor Grade 4 Daily Geography Practice. So inside of there, you can see there are 36-week plans. I don't know that we will get through to all of these, but there are some key areas of focus that I want to make sure get covered in geography for this specific year. This one is the daily geography versus skill sharpeners. So in here, it has a teacher focus side here. It's not in color. And then usually you get some sort of a map or some other key area with then the next couple pages of questions. And it's a daily geography that usually has everything for that week focused on one page portioned out. And then it also gives you the answers here on this page 4 within the actual book itself. So you don't need a separate teacher's manual. And just for comparison, in case you wanted to see what like the skill sharpeners geography looks like, these are the ones that have a lot more color in them, but it doesn't go into great detail about anything specifically. It just goes into a little bit of information about each one. So you can see the units in here. So in here there's 16 units, and then the answer key in the back, and then they vary. So we've got reading, visual literacy, and they're all a common theme, like the world in spatial terms, but they're not all looking at the same map and focus for that given week. Okay, so those are our plans for geography. Okay, so for our first major unit study that we will be doing this year is William Shakespeare. So we have an Usborne book about William Shakespeare. So this will just be a little bit of information about biography of William Shakespeare. And then we have some additional Usborne books of the actual plays. So we have Twelfth Night, Macbeth, Hamlet, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. And then along with these, we have some readers. The Shakespeare Stealer and Bard of Avon. So those are kind of the storybook ones that we'll be covering. And then we have a fun Shakespeare sticker book by Usborne that we will be using as well as we go through each of those books. So we may include some others as well during this, but at this stage, I don't want to have a really long unit study for Shakespeare. So that is our first unit. And then our second unit study will be on artists. So we have the main book we're going to use is Old Masters Rock, How to Look at Art with Children. And then we'll go into a little bit more details about Claude Monet. And that's when we'll pull in our Moving Beyond the Page unit that I spoke about in the language arts video. And then I can link that below if you want to go back and reference that. In addition, we're going to use some Usborne books. We have the Usborne Art Treasury, and this one has actual projects in it. So we'll be pulling some key paintings out of here and then working on those projects. And then for reference, we'll have the Usborne book of famous artists, the Usborne Art Picture book, the Usborne Story of Art Picture book, and the Usborne Famous Paintings Picture book. And then we will pull a few of the stories from Vincent's Starry Night and Other Stories, A Children's History of Art. And then if needed, we have this DK, The Arts, a Visual Encyclopedia, but we have a lot of reference books here, and I'm not sure yet which ones we're going to pull from. I still need to choose kind of the projects that we will be doing in the painting book. So still unsure yet, but I wanted to show you all of the possible resources that we'll be using. And then lastly, I have the Usborne Art Activity Pad. So this will be some fun activities for Lily to do while we're working on or listening to some of those stories. So that is our second unit study for famous artists. So that is it for our history, geography, and our 2-unit studies. And that concludes our current picks for the 2025 and 2026 school years. So thank you, everybody. Please like and subscribe, and then I will see you next time. Bye.